Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And today I'm sitting in the sanctuary of the Fledge with all the art and the lights and the plants that you probably can't quite see. But I love this area. It makes me feel, I don't know, like ready to go, I guess. So I've got brown hair, I've got brown eyes, I've got my headset on. I'm wearing a Lansing over everything t-shirt that CISO and his brand made. So shout out to CISO. And today on the show, we have our great friend, Camron Gnass. How you doing, Camron?
Great, Jerry. Good to see you.
So how many people say Gnass, or does anybody do that?
Boy, I mean, I have friends I've had for 20 years who still can't say it right. It's actually, it's Gnass. It's German. It's German, and the A is supposed to sound like the O in pop. So there's supposed to be umlauts, and then the double S is supposed to be that weird B shape. But yeah, it's Gnass.
How is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, we all, yep, my dad's family goes by Gnass. So yeah.
So you're the second person in 2 days I've been pronouncing your name wrong for 20 years. It feels like.
You're not alone in that, and I just almost don't bother correcting people because I'm one of 7 kids. My mom was one of 7 kids. There's so many kids in my family. If you get called anything that recognizes you, you're just willing to engage. So it doesn't matter.
I feel like I put the ass in Gnass now.
I've got a great story about that. I'll tell you later if you want. Even on this show about the construction of our name and how people have used it to rile us up for sure. It's a sports story about high school from your hometown, or not hometown, but where you were before with the Fledge and Grand Ledge. So
let's go right into it, man. I want to hear this now.
So I was fortunate enough to play high school sports. In my junior year, I got to play with my brother, who was a year older than me, senior, and we showed up at Grand Ledge. I was in Holt, and we showed up for a basketball game. And we're doing warm-ups, and then you go into the locker room, right, and you come back out. Well, right before we go into the locker room, the Grand Ledge basketball team comes out, and the cheerleaders roll out a big banner, and the banner is painted in green letters, and it says "Kick Holtz GN" in small lowercase, and then ASS was huge red letters with an exclamation point after it and underlined. And we were so mad. Like, my brother and I were so mad, and our teammates were just laughing like this is the funniest thing ever. And then what's funny is a segment of that game ended up on ESPN. At the very end of the game, my brother gets fouled, and he makes the first free throw, and it puts us up by 4. Literally, like 1 second left. He misses the second free throw, and the guard from Grand Ledge, his name was Kevin Johnson, grabs the ball and chucks it the length of the court and swishes it. And their fans go crazy, but they forgot they still lost by 1 point. What's funny is Phoenix Suns, I don't know if you remember the early 90s, the Phoenix Suns had a guard named Kevin Johnson. He hit a 3/4 court shot to win the game. So 2 Kevin Johnsons hit full court shots that night. My dad is golfing in Mississippi. His friends are like, Dave, your son's on TV. And he looks up, and it's a shot. My brother is shooting a free throw. And then they cut to, it was like the weirdest thing. And I don't have a clip of it. I don't know how to find it. No one will tell me what it is. I know the date of the game, but ESPN, archive. I'm not talking to the right people apparently.
Yeah. Maybe they don't keep the high school highlights for very long.
It was like one of those weird clips, right? Like at the end. But yeah, it was kind of funny. But yeah, so the name has been used in all the jokes, but the worst, because when you're a high school athlete, the worst is when your rival does something with it. So yeah.
Well, in that town, there's a bunch of Jack Gnasses anyway. So
I won't go there, but yeah.
All right. So you gave us some hints already. But I'm going to jump into you for a little bit. Where were you born and raised? Where did you go to school?
First, I want to recognize that I love at the beginning of these shows, you give people some without some visuals, right? And so I just want to say that I'm in a really old building right now, and I'd be happy to talk about that. So you see a 100-year-old brick wall behind me. I'm wearing a gray shirt, which matches some of the gray in my beard. And if I had hair on my bald head, it would probably be gray as well. So that's kind of what I look like to those that can't see anything. But from here, from the Lansing area, born in Lansing, at Lansing General, spent the first couple years of my life in a couple different small homes, I'm from a yours, mine, and ours kind of family. And so when my family merged with my dad, who I grew up as calling dad, and he adopted me when I was in my early teens. But when he became our dad and when our families were officially merged, the little tiny house that we were all sharing wasn't big enough. So they moved out to Diamondale, a little village on the southwest side of town. And it was where my mom had been raised. And so I had aunts and uncles, and my grandma, had lived there or was living there. And so we moved out to that little community, and I lived there my whole, school life. Moved one time in the community, literally carried had to carry stuff because we were only a block away, and my parents had all these kids. Like, why would they pay a mover? So we literally were using like a garden cart, and like the couch was going down the sidewalk in the garden cart. It was hilarious. So I think I was like 10 when we did that. And then I went away to school. I went to West Virginia University for 3 semesters and 3 weeks sort of thing. So I quit in the beginning of my second semester of my sophomore year, drove back, loaded everything I had from the house I was sharing with some guys into my car. It was an old 85 Delta 88, like a big hoopty. Loaded everything in there, drove home, knocked on my girlfriend's door, who was living in Holmes Hall, and was like, this pre-texting, pre-cell phone, pre-find friends or whatever. And so I just I'm back. And I don't know if she was as happy as I was that I was back, because we had this long distance thing going. But it was great. And we ended up, so I'm 19, because I started school at 17. I moved back at 19 and ended up, quitting college. I was just like, this is not for me. And started working back at Kinko's at the time, or across street from campus. I had worked there some in high school and on the holiday breaks from school. And we ended up that summer, my girlfriend and I ended up pregnant. And we needed a place to move to where I could, we could have resources. And she was from a couple hours away up north. And we ended up back in Diamondale. Had been renting an apartment, living in a basement in East Lansing, but ended up in Diamondale at this little tiny house that we rented from a cool landlord who was so great. And we used that as our home base to have these teenagers that were pregnant, getting ready to have a baby, and had access to grandma down the street and my parents around the corner, and my aunt and uncle lived next door. And it was just this kind of a perfect landing spot for us. And in August, it'll be 26 years we've lived in that same home. We ended up buying it from the landlord a few years later. He was great with us on a land contract because I was an entrepreneur at the time. And I know I'm skipping here a little bit, but we ended up buying it, renovating it, adding on to it so that there was space, because it was this tiny little thing. And it's still really tiny, but we just love the property. It's in the village. It's walkable. Our kids walked to school when it wasn't raining, because then they made mom or dad drive them. But so it was a really, kind of, we call it our little slice of heaven. And it's just a great little spot to have raised our family. And now that our kids are all out of the house, by the way, the girlfriend, we ended up getting married and having a couple more kids. So the same girlfriend, she's just amazing. But so we've worked through that, right? And here we are, 26 years, almost just a couple months, 26 years ago, I moved back to Lansing, and this is what I do.
So out of all those things you just talked about, I've got the song "My '98 Oldsmobile" stuck in my head now.
Yeah,
because in the late '80s, I had a Delta 88. That's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
And mine didn't have reverse, so I was always strategically parking. And but I loved that car, man. I felt safe.
You remember the size of those things? And if anybody has ever been to Morgantown, West Virginia, it's a tiny little town built on the side of a mountain along the Monongahela River, and that town is not built for cars like a Delta, like an Oldsmobile Delta 88. And it's so big that imagine college kids piling into a car, because we would have never had more than the allowed 5 people. Right. Imagine maybe a few more than that in a car and making a right-hand turn off of a hill, because everything is, hills, and the bumper catching the ground.
Wow.
peeling the bumper back. And then the next location / party we went to, we realized that the bumper was sticking out at a 45-degree angle, and we had a great idea of how to straighten it back out. And that was just drive up to a tree and just put it in reverse and have the tree push it flatter. It never got fully back. But on one of the next trips home, I went to the junkyard and bought a different bumper and put it on. But that car was not built for the mountains of Morgantown. So, yeah.
So speaking of West Virginia, did you play basketball for them?
No.
Okay.
No, I was a high school soccer. I played basketball in high school. I also played high school soccer, and that was the only place that offered me any sort of opportunity. That was the highest level place that I could play. At the time, they were switching from the Atlantic 10 to the Big East, and I went there and ended up, one of those things where though I was maybe good around here, when you end up at a Division I school, you're just average because everybody else is an All-American as well. So that the playing career in college never came out to anything, but that's what took me there, was the opportunity to play a college sport. Yeah.
I didn't make it through wrestling all 4 years either. Got hurt and all this other stuff. But so you listed a few projects on your, and thank you for all of that. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of your projects that you work on. I mean, you've got your company, but you do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So if I go backwards to, being 19 and the college dropout and working at Kinko's that summer and knowing a baby was coming, I'm like, I like doing this desktop publishing stuff in this department, but there was a couple people that were coming in with, do you remember SideQuest discs?
Yeah.
44 megabyte SideQuest discs. They were showing up with 44 meg, files, which now you can almost just attach to an email. But they were showing up with these beautiful designs. And I had gotten involved in kind of the creative space when I was a teenager. My mom worked for an educational software company in the village of Diamonddale. Actually, it was an old school startup in a brick building with guys wearing Birkenstocks and Nerf guns in the mid 80s. And I just fell in love with that. And I'm like, one day I'm going to own an old building, and so very much what I do and how I operate today is watching that startup had grown into 100, employees and then sold, just a classic software startup story, but in the 80s. It was great. So I got a firsthand knowledge or witness of that. I was in those spaces. And so I was in the creative space, working around those artists. I got into high school, was involved in our yearbook design and editing and publishing of that stuff and the design of that, which was great. And so then moved into, I went to school for elementary ed, but really never let go of the design. So even at West Virginia, I had an old, Macintosh computer. I was designing stuff for friends and posters and t-shirts and stuff. And I realized that there was no way I could raise a kid on what was the minimum wage in the mid 90s there,
Probably the same as it is today.
$5 or $6 an hour. You're right. And I just knew that wasn't going to be a thing. And these people were coming in and I was asking them questions. They were so great. Courtney, was probably the best at it. And she just was awesome at telling me what she was doing, how she was doing the process. Anyway, so I wanted to emulate that. So I quit working at Kinko's and started a business as a 19-year-old kid. And here we are, right? So now in the 26th year of doing this and feel really fortunate to have gotten this spot. But the project of Traction itself is pretty interesting, just in the path I've had about being a college dropout freelance designer who wasn't actually very good at design, is what I learned, that I personally maybe wasn't the best designer. But as I started to hire people, as the business grew and the focus on what we did and the position that we, have taken in the market and kind of where we offer it, I've just hired, I think I'm the smartest hirer in all of Lansing. I got so lucky, and whatever gift I was given or I should say gifts that people have given me to help me discover where people have the ability to be creative and letting them work for me. And I'd put our work up against anybody in town because of my staff and kind of the collective process that we've built over the years. So my biggest project is this agency. And it's, knock on wood, it's been going great, but.
Was it always called Traction?
Oh gosh, no. When I first started, I was also at night trying to earn a bunch of money. I was DJing for Jam and DJs, which with the time were one of the leaders in the area of, mobile music. And so I met them because they would come in and make flyers in the middle of the night when I was working overnight shifts. And so I was like, can I DJ for you guys? And again, just some punk kid, but they let me do it. And so one day I was, I'd been thinking about wanting to start my own design company, and I was going in and out of their office picking up paychecks, and there was the desk. They literally just had a desk that had like a bunch of trash on it. And I go, hey, can I rent that and start a business? And they were like, sure. So we took all the trash out, and they let me rent the space by just me answering the phones when they weren't there. Just brides or bars or whatever, call in for events. And I would just take these little slips and hand it to them. And that was my rent. And that was my first introduction to kind of startup support or incubation. Like, these guys were grads of Michigan State in advertising and marketing, and they knew, the creative space, and were, doing really great stuff. And they were just so wonderful, like mentors, Dave and Jerry, to just be around their energy about how to grow a business and how to be, try to be things for people and solve problems. And so it just was this amazingly lucky like window into how to start a business and be present for them. And my rent was answering the phone, right? So I named the business in honor of Jammin' DJs, and to try to make it look like we were this collective media company, Jammin' Designs.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it was bad. It just wasn't really what it wasn't really the best descriptor. And then I changed it a couple years later to Vision Creative. And then in about 2009, we were ready for kind of a redo of our own identity stuff. And I had my staff take me through one of our own creative briefs. And 5 minutes into it, I'm like, holy cow, like, our name is terrible because it's not really what we do. And so then because we help companies rename and we help companies reposition themselves, and we were finally putting a lens on ourselves. And in that process, I realized that our name was terrible. And so then I began the hunt for the next name. And so we switched it to Traction in 2010. And so we've been in this for, just over 10 years, but it's the same company, the same people, the same staff, the same buildings, the same, everything's the same.
Do people get it confused with the book?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I just say, that's an honor, but no, nothing like that. In fact, what's funny is I know the book well, and I have many friends who institute the EOS, and I've introduced people to the EOS, but we don't use it. Like, we're not big enough for that. Or I should say the size of our company in terms of like management and people we're not at the size to actually implement that. But
I don't do any of the startup stuff I tell my people to either.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
There was a bit in there where I felt you lifting up a little bit, and you were taking a lot of pride in your employees.
Yeah.
And Traction's been around for a long time. I mean, 3 name changes isn't, it's still continuous.
Yeah.
I think you guys do really good work. Where are most of your clients in Lansing? No,
not really. Our work is distributed around Michigan, Traverse City to Grand Rapids, Detroit. We just rebranded, and I should say there's never a flip of a switch when you do a rebrand. It's a process, and so we're in the middle of the beginning of the rollout of a rebrand for a 65-year-old, 22 unit food service business in Detroit, multi-restaurant location. We have clients in Salt Lake or LA and Orlando. We actually have one in Huddersfield, England, which is amazing. So now our most visible work that people around here would know is based here, but a lot of our creative work is outside of this market. And I do have to say, when you hear me talk about my staff, present and past, that's one of the things I'm definitely most proud of. One of when healthcare.gov launched under Obama, the creative director, art director of that is a former, art director of mine who had moved to the east side of the country. There's a guy who has a much time larger digital agency business in Chicago who started literally right here behind me, at that desk. And people have gone on and worked in some really epic businesses and done some really profound stuff. And I'm so grateful for their time with me. And when they do leave, it hurts. But I will say that I don't know if anybody's ever left my business for a lateral move here in town. They move on and upward to somewhere that I'm so just thankful that they were a part of us as part of their launching point. And yeah.
So I think you have a bunch of awards around you.
Well, yeah, we used to hang some on the wall. We just kind of got rid of them. It felt a little awkward. But my monitor stand right here is some of them. But I think that that the action of getting an award is it's great for the business. But what I love about the awards that we win and the recognition that we get is it's the chance for my staff that works so hard on these things to feel what I get to live every day. You know what I mean? In that when I'm around you or other people in the community or the clients in a social setting, and they say things like, "Oh, this is Cam, he did it," and people say, "Oh, that's great work." Not often are the people that are working on the grind of this thing able to feel that, praise, because I am the face sometimes and the voice of our agency. And so I'm out and about and see it and feel it directly. What I love about the awards is when we, like at an Addy show, when we win a ton of them, and I just have to point to my staff, and you got to go up there and get it as awkward and uncomfortable as they may be going up in front. At least it's their chance to recognize that they are recognized. It's somebody else telling them that their work is good and not just me or the client. It's a kind of a third party verification. We won a gold medal award in New York for a book that we published. And that was a really big deal, when the medal that goes around your neck shows up, and, Terry got to wear it, and it's like, and who sees that? It's not about the next client that sees it. It's about them feeling like the work they did was so valued and really respected by peers and people in the industry that do that. When we get published, we get published in this international book called Logo Lounge every year for the last, many, many years. And when we put the social posts out that are like, hey, we just had 3 logos selected or 5 logos selected out of 22,000 entries. It just helps them recognize wow, this process and the hard work, that it takes. Cause we don't just whip up a design. It starts with meetings and strategy and writing and challenges and conversations. And, it's a grind to get there. And they get the awards to me are for them and for my crew. And I love that. I love that they have to use it as their monitor stand instead of me buying something else. Right.
It sounds to me like you're a great coach, a great leader. It's funny, when I moved back here, I wanted to get involved in coaching because I had fallen out of love with the sport as a player. I randomly ran into a guy in the stands of a high school football game, and he was wearing a jacket of Holt Soccer. And I was like, "Hey, kind of, who are you?" Because I haven't been a part of Holt Soccer for the last several years. He's like, "Oh, I'm the new head coach." And we got to chatting, and he invited me out to come work with the goalkeepers and be an assistant coach. And I did that for 17 years. So I was a varsity coach for 17 years. And it was just, I loved that world of coaching there, and there was a lot of similarities with being with my staff here. And not that I could teach them anything about goalkeeping in here, but just the process of being a part of somebody, and leading has so many great things to it. I've never. I don't think there's one way to lead. I don't have the only way. I don't have the magic sauce. I just, I feel that I've been lucky that the position I've been put in and the things that have been put around me have worked out, and my staff appreciates kind of how I do it, I guess. So yeah. Let's switch topics. Let's switch to the Capital City Film Festival.
Yeah, boy, what a fun thing. So right before the film festival, for a couple of years, I was a part of a program called Ignite. And we put on these really fun kind of show and tell events, and helped bring TEDx, to Lansing. And we just knew that was working. People loved coming out and to be a part of something. And right around that time, Dom Cochran and Nicole Simzak, Sclafani, she got married kind of right at the beginning of that, but they were having coffee and talked about how cool it would be to do a film festival and celebrate film in mid-Michigan, right here in Lansing, downtown Lansing. There's the East Lansing Film Festival, which does its own kind of thing. And they wanted to do a different kind of thing. So they brought together some people. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those people asked. And so a group of us got together, and within 6 months put on the first Capital City Film Festival. And last year was supposed to be our 10th annual. It ended up doing a 9.5 version many months after the original festival was supposed to happen that we had to pause. But it has been just such an epic journey for me personally, but for my staff as a creative agency to be a part of telling the story of the festival, growing it from its first couple, fledgling, version of it to what it is now. And I'm just so honored to be a part of the crew that has been a part of it since the beginning. It's a volunteer-led organization that works really hard to curate multimedia experiences from film to music to comedy over many days, all over downtown and, Rio Town to the Old Town to the east side. And we convert, hot tub warehouse spaces to theaters or rundown buildings to
who you call
places,
a rundown building,
or buildings that are on the verge of coming to life. And I think, were we the first event in the business, like the day after you got your keys or something like that in the pledge?
It was very, very close. We might have done a coding club, and I think we did a rap show in between there, but you were definitely the first one we committed to.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have an agreement yet.
Well, we still had pews in there. We had to undo and move some stuff, but I love that sanctuary space because it's such a great home or a great location that we've done the festival at for many years. And so, a couple years ago, we were told basically, or somebody found it on a list, that we were one of the top 25 coolest film festivals in the world. And we're like, what? And that was the year after we came to the Fledge and had a couple others. And apparently how it works, it's not something you nominate anybody for, just people based on reviews on the submission sites, basically that we use, and of filmmakers and of people that have experienced it. And we bubbled up to the top of the world. So other, festivals around, and it's just, what a cool honor, right? To be recognized as a place that we don't have a downtown theater. Where is our independent film? So that's the space we create, right? We create this space for community and kind of this collective experience, which you can't get with Netflix, and you can't get, even in a big theater space. It's the before and the after, and the conversation with the filmmakers that we bring in from around the country, and in the different kinds of films that we do, and all the different tangential experiences that are a part of that festival are just so darn fun.
The silent films with the orchestra blew me away, man. That blew me away. We created this thing for us called the Symphonic Cinema. And so we'll do that during our festival. We'll create these kind of major events inside this big event, and Symphonic Cinema was one of them where we did it for many years, where we brought in the entire Lansing Symphony, brought in silent film. They did a custom score for it, and you were in this theater. And the last one that we did was, I'm going to call it I don't know if the sellout is the right word, because we did it for free for 1,000 people at the Lansing Center. But the Lansing Center security were at the doors kind of yelling at us, you can't let any more people in here. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I can't let any more people. It's your building. And there were people in the hallway that had to wait till intermission when some people left before they could come in. But we ended up propping the doors open, and they were just sitting cross-legged on the floor in the hallway of the Lansing Center, looking into this 1,000-person at capacity room where people were literally laying on the floor in front of the screen, and just said safety. You couldn't do it. It was free. It was for the community, and it was amazing. And there was more than 1,000 people in there, and it was just one of the highlights, definitely, of the festival. I probably said that to you one or two times during the after party that first year, because they got me in a lot of trouble. Yeah, it was fun. We've done Science of Cinema at Impression 5. We do different programs and events throughout that try to engage people, where we can kind of meet people where they're at with what they can get from it. So engaging kids, we give away free passes to Impression 5 for the day so kids can come. And then we set up little stations. Michaela there and Eric has been so gracious with the commitment of their space and staff's time to come in and learn what a Foley studio really is like, or how lighting works. So we call it the Science of Cinema, where kids can go through and learn the experience about film. And so we engage them that way. But yeah, just such a great time. And this year, Jerry, it's happening. We're going to do it in the fall. It's going to be late October. We're going to try to do a 10-day festival. And hopefully by then some of the limits of the inside gets lifted. So it may not be
the full festival experience like somebody's had in the past, but I promise it'll be a version that people will love to be engaged with. And then we're going to try to flip it around and go right back to our April time slot in 2022.
Well, if you ever want us, we're in.
Okay, great. I'll send you the date soon. You can hold them for us.
And I was just about to ask you what you just answered. So let's get the Beacon soccer field.
Yeah.
Because now this is starting to make sense to me, because I didn't realize you were involved with the Beacon.
Yeah.
And then when you put that, I didn't know why you were involved, but now I understand more.
I grew up in love with the sport. And a guy in town here had gone to the South Africa World Cup and came back, actually was texting me while he was there, super inspired about something he had seen out in the remote countryside of South Africa, countryside. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but these remote villages basically where FIFA has a thing when they go to do a World Cup in a country, they have to leave a footprint. I mean, that's their mission, is they leave a footprint of the game, and how can they, grow the game and really leave the country. And there's definitely bad things that they leave the country with, like stadiums that never get used again. And so I don't know if that's their goal, is to balance out the bad that does happen. So there's good and bad with it. But the good in the South Africa one was they built these things called, Football for Hope, basically. And they built these mini soccer fields that were walled and had nets behind, and they had lights on them at night. And they built community centers, and it was just destinations where people could go play on a high quality, surface and material. And so we found out that one of their things they did was an open architecture project. And so they had basically the blueprints effectively that people could use. So what we did is we came here and we're like, why can't that exist in an urban core? Why does it have to be out in these villages in Africa? Can we do it in the urban core? So we built the first of their kind here in the US, right here in downtown Lansing, in the shadow of the Capitol. It's up at Ferris Park. And we had to fundraise almost $250,000. And we put that together. We got the city parks department to commit part of the city budget, just a small amount of it though. The best part of doing that project though was doing the community fundraising, where we put a goal out there. We used this platform the MEDC had, where they would match some state money to money that we wanted to raise. They asked us how much we wanted to commit, and we said $60,000. And they said, "Oh, no. That's like way too, like we've never had anybody raise that much money on this thing." And we said, deal, let's still do it. That's our commitment, because if we raise 60, they match 60. That gave us almost half of what we needed, of course, that we could then leverage with the Parks Department budget and other corporate donations and sponsorships. So we raised the 60, we raised over 60. They matched up to that amount. They matched 60, and the field came to life. And it, from the day one, in fact, on YouTube, we have videos of we have the whole construction happened in 30 days. And then the first 40 days of play, we mounted the same camera and watched the first 40 days of play. And in that same 40 days, it snowed, it rained, people were there every single day playing into the night. And it's been amazing. It's been up and running now for 5+ years in the first location. We built a second one in the southwest corner of town. Boy, it's been a fun project to watch the community really use it, right? Like, it gets used every single day. It's 80 degrees out today. It'll be loaded tonight. Both parks will be loaded tonight with people playing. And what I love about it, Jerry, is that it's free play. It's open play. So we raised all this money and gave it to the community, and there's no rules. The rules are set by the people that are playing there. And there's no reservations. You can't book it for a practice, a team. And we get requests all the time coming to me, and I'm like, no, you can't request it. There's no place to reserve it. And what that means is it's for the community. It's this free play concept on a high quality surface where we have dedicated people. And then out of nowhere, we get people committing to helping maintain it. Or we had to buy new nets for the one at Ferris Park, and we raised a little bit more money. Those nets were really expensive to do that. But like a couple of weeks ago, we saw on social media that the Lansing Common Club, the soccer club here in town, went and just did a cleanup day, like a field cleanup day. And it's so great, but it kind of self-polices and it self-cleans up. And the Parks Department realized they needed to put a porta potty there. And then we realized that there was, so we got the Board of Water and Light and the city and we had to raise a little bit more money to install a drinking fountain. So now there's a drinking fountain there. There's a pad for bike locks, bike rack. We installed benches in the form of gigantic rocks. But people will go up and watch. There's some great play happening there. And the best part is, from the fundraising side, we had people donating $5. And I felt just as good about that as I did with a $10,000 commitment from a corporation, because what that meant is if somebody only had $5 to give, that's how important it was for them to help bring all of these cultures together. On any given night, there's a minimum of a half a dozen languages being spoken there, or could be spoken there. And it's wonderful to see that.
Yes, kudos on the small donations, because I've made a post about that with our fundraiser too. Mm-hmm. Those $5, $10 are super meaningful. But I want to skip that real quick. Mm-hmm. How important do you think this was to our refugee community? I mean,
yeah, really important. And in fact, we knew they were in the neighborhood, and we did a lot of work in the community around that. So there was a Friends of Ferris Park, there was the downtown Lansing organization, the refugee center is right around the corner. And we just went to them and told them what we were trying to do. And they just said, how can we help do this? Because it's so important. Soccer is a universal language, right? And people can argue about it here in America about how big it is, but like any given Saturday morning game that's on at 7:30 a.m. here has as many viewers as a Super Bowl does. And it's just a regular season EPL, game. So the game is global, and people in our community, whether it's refugees playing or we have people, again, credit the Grand Ledge kids. They get in their car and they drive in from the suburb, right? And they come downtown and they play with those refugees. Or there's a 70-year-old guy that shows up and plays, and he's awesome. And little, I was up there one evening, and a kid who plays at Michigan State was there, and his little sister was a 15-year-old girl, and she was playing with all these guys, and everybody's welcoming, and it gets competitive. It's really good soccer to play, but it's not about the game. It's not about teaching moments there. It's about you grow as a player and as a person, just experiencing that international conversation and expectations and skills and foot skills, and the speed of the game at that size is so fun, to be a part of too. But I could talk forever about Beacon, but we're so proud of that and that project. Yeah.
Well, those are three really cool things. And I bet you if we really started digging into it, there'd be 100 more projects you got that you're juggling. Yeah. And I thought somewhere in there I was going to be able to easily kind of see what your mission is. But what is your mission? What, either you as a person or I don't want you to read Traction's corporate mission, but
believe it or not, I've never done a business plan for anything officially, right? But my personal mission, I think, is this level of just be curious, kind of forever, and help people solve problems.
Yeah.
So when I put that lens on about what problem could we solve in downtown Lansing, and that's giving a place that felt good, has high quality materials, gives people a chance to play at a place that they don't have to subscribe or pay a club. We were very fortunate. Our son and daughter grew up traveling the country playing soccer, and we would literally jump in our old car with like right now has 375,000 miles on that car that, it's been all over. And how lucky were we that our kids had the opportunity to have parents that could afford that kind of travel fee and expensive to experience the game on these levels. And why not find a way to flip that inside out and kind of put it right here? And so solving a problem like that, giving access to the game, basically. But that's probably the summary of it.
So what do you do every damn day to push that forward?
We commit as an agency or as any of these projects that I'm involved in, not to be a yes man or a yes woman position, right? We are not doers of people telling us what to do. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean when somebody expresses this is what they're looking for, the curiosity allows us to dive deeper and figure out what are they really trying to solve? And then how can we bring the tools of creativity or the tools of our past experiences to that problem or to that issue and really help them solve a problem they might not know how to voice or to express in writing about what they're really trying to get at. So again, be it the film festival with curated experiences, or be it Beacon Soccer Field, or again, I could go on about other projects that we've done. But as an agency, for sure, I don't think we do people, and I don't think people in general do the best work when they just do what they're told. And I don't mean to be a contrarian to be mean. I just mean confirm, right? Be curious about the intent of something. And however, my high school and middle school teachers would probably tell you that I was the arguer just for the sake of arguing. But, you know, again, it was just more out of curiosity. And I just think that I've been lucky to let that spin itself into a business and an agency that helps companies and customers and people, entrepreneurs, solve their problems and have, you know, dreams come to life through creative work, and in big businesses tell stories as well.
That old adage, the customer is always right, gets in the way quite a bit in this type of space.
Yeah.
Because they're right with how they feel. Like if they're not happy with the output, yep, they're right. But telling you how to write code or how to do a design, they're not always right.
We have a couple mantras that we use around here, and one of them is, the customer may just damn well be right. I mean, that is the truth, but we don't let it happen on a like or dislike platform. It's not, I like that, good, or I don't like it, change it. It's, okay, what is it about this color green that isn't working for you? Or man, again, we could tell the story forever, but what about this color yellow doesn't work? And she just wanted us to pick a different yellow. And there was this client, right? She was a baker. And we ended up asking her enough questions, enough versions of the question, that what she said was, you know what? The yellow isn't savory enough for me. My work is more butter savory than sweet sugary. And I was like, you're right. This is the wrong yellow. Here is the yellow that will work with this brand. And so we switched the yellow based on her being able to communicate, because in all of the conversations and the creative brief and the process leading up to it, the word savory never came up. It was never a component of how she expressed herself. She was a baker who made amazing sweets that were gluten-free and organic, right? But once we got to that point, now we could shift. So instead of us being the yes man or yes ma'am, we'll change the color for you. It was, what is it about this color is not working, and how do we get to that solution? But yeah.
Nice. So we daisy chain these shows together. And yesterday on the show, we had Mike Young, and he's got a question for you. And the question is, what's your favorite plant or rock, whichever you want to answer?
So I'll probably go with rock version because my wife and kids are always laughing at me, because sometimes I just stop and pick up a rock and either admire it or put it in my pocket and bring it home. And so I think the truth is probably any rock that looks like it has a unique story, right? One that's not fitting into the space that it was in, or it's got a shape, it's like, they're like people, right? Like every person has their story, every brand has their story, every rock has its story. And sometimes I'm just frankly just looking at it going, what is the deal with this thing? I was just on a campus at the Edward Lowe Foundation a couple of weeks ago and came upon this rock. The snow had just melted, and it was this like really perfect, like oblong, looked like a potato shape. And it was just cracked all over. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just about to fall apart. And so I picked it up. And as I took the pieces apart, there was like I'm going to say walnut. It definitely wasn't a walnut. There was a core to the rock. And then I could put it back together. So I kept the rock and I gave it to the people at the foundation. I was like, look at this cool rock. It was hatching something. But it just makes you wonder, like, okay, that rock got formed because there was something that got compressed around it. But how come this thing isn't the size of a semi-truck? I just can't get my head around it. So a rock that has a story probably is unique.
I pick up a rock on the beach and I throw it in the water. And then I almost immediately every time have regret, because I try to think, I wonder how long it took that rock to get here.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he's conscious that I just threw him back, and how much does that rock hate me?
Yeah. That's great. Right.
So no plants?
I don't know. I think for a long while, I really liked lilies. I don't know why or where that came from, but that's definitely a tiger lily is in my head about something I appreciated, many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow on the show, I have a person who I don't really know yet, named Maureen, that has a company called Cabby. I don't know anything about it yet, so
Great.
I'm going to learn on air. But what random question would you like to ask Maureen?
Probably along the lines of inspiration. So where's the oddest place you've found inspiration?
And that question, I don't know what you mean by place. It's a great question. So let me see. I'll flip it on you.
Okay.
Where's the oddest place you've ever found inspiration?
Oh, I feel like I get inspired and am looking for inspiration everywhere. So I don't know that I have an oddest place. I think some places that rank are like, a European street that has moss growing between the cobblestones, and thinking about symmetry and how sometimes we think beauty is always in symmetry, but sometimes it's not in symmetry. And so therefore it gives freedom to think outside of that natural, kind of expectation of what beauty is or something. So boy, I don't know. As soon as they flip back on me, I don't know that I have a specific location, but definitely it comes in spaces. One of the things I did at the Edward Lowe Foundation, it was a great entrepreneurial program, was basically I was there and I wasn't allowed to work in the business, right? I was there to just think about me and the business. And I found incredible inspiration just walking through the woods without the weight of having to respond to anybody. And it was the first time in a really, really long time I've given myself the freedom to just think. I was walking across little footbridges and by plants, and it was just this walking down a nature trail helps solve a business problem just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But when you give yourself the freedom to think that way, it can work.
If I get stuck, I go to Fenner a lot.
Yeah, that's great.
What is happiness to you, and are you happy?
Oh boy. Definitely happy, and feel that happiness comes from lots of places. And I know that it's unfortunate that so many people get buried. I once heard a long time ago that love, once you find it, can always be there. It just unfortunately gets things stacked on top of it, and it just presses it down, and you've just got to remove those layers and kind of find that again. And so I've fallen in and out of love with this business, right? I've fallen in and out of love with friends. But I always try to remember why I'm here or why I'm there. And so happiness for me, again, I feel so fortunate that I have this opportunity to always stay kind of in a place where I have been free to worry, but somehow have a ability to keep those layers kind of shed a little bit. And so happiness to me is kind of freedom, like freedom of thought, freedom of experience. And, my family, I was so lucky to be born into a family with so many kids and cousins and, aunts and uncles and myself having 3 kids, and I'm now a new grandfather. And to try to keep from getting emotional, I'll try to stay a little surface level on that. But just this thought that my family and the freedom that we have to just to be us and to experience each other, though sometimes things are tricky, with siblings and with in relationships with kids and parents and stuff like that. But happiness to me is being. I feel fortunate that I'm in a family that has that kind of connection and safety. I know that's not the same for everybody, but that's where I'm at with it.
So you're episode 227 today. We started at episode 182, asking the question. So about 42 episodes ago, I think, 45. And only one person has said that they're not happy. And what's been amazing me is that, and some people, they're they have substance use disorder. They are completely suffering from depression, but it's amazing to me how people will find their happiness. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe they're scared to say, no, I'm not happy. I'm fucking miserable. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you, Jerry, putting yourself in environments where you feel energy from other people creates happiness. And, I'm on a call right now with you, and I know where you're coming from in terms of creating the Fledge and the purpose that you have. And so I feel like anybody that would have accepted this invitation from you is probably sitting in a situation where they have a moment of happiness, even if it's for this half an hour, 45 minutes, where they get to experience you and the energy you have. It's so infectious and so important. And so thank you for doing what you do, because I think putting these shows on and engaging people and asking them these questions. And I know you have had family, struggles and relationship struggles and all of those things. But just the fact that somebody like you, right, a Jerry of this world can find happiness and continually shoot and engage other people and help them find their happiness is so important, dude. And so the work you're doing is just, is so good, and that feels good. And I love being around people that do that. And that's something that makes me happy for sure.
So thank you for saying that, but no more flipping stuff on me. I'm the flipper here. No, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What gives you hope?
Oh man. In the last several years, it seems like it's less things, but I just mean the climate in general, right? The polarization of things. It's just really unfortunate that people use it as a weapon instead of a something to grow from. And so I think what gives me hope is the fact that I've surrounded myself with people that are just, trying to be impactful, and that I get to see that again in my own kids, and I get to see it within my staff and in people around the community. And so there are the little moments of, if I saw one today, the guy who just made the PGA Tour event next weekend, and he called his dad and broke down. And, and the story isn't that he just made it, it's that he's 27 and, rare is the guy who has been grinding that long and finally gets his first event. So what gives me hope is the fact that it might take you 15 years to get to the moment that you want to be at. But I'm assuming this coming weekend, when he goes there, he'll have a new mission or a new goal or something to grind for. And so it gives me hope is finding random people who've been grinding and finding a success, be it little or be it epic, and that's the nature of people deep down, that they might be after something. Gives me hope, because hopefully they can be the one that opens up that next window and create something great.
You're amazing. I think you're a great leader. I mean, you can just tell. I think you're amazing. Thank you very much. So, did we forget to talk about anything? Like, you've got this sketch going of, I don't know.
I don't know if we forgot anything, because we could do this for a long time. I love these kinds of conversations, but I think something that's important as we come out of this pandemic, and I do feel like there's an end in sight of, people getting to finding ways to engage and to grow again. But, don't forget that the small business owners, right? The small businesses in our community need our support. I know that, there are places like Taco Bell that are, franchise owned or corporate owned, and maybe it does impact, there's employees there for sure, but there's the Saddlebacks of the world that have done so much, more for our community, and have committed to their employees and to the community, and the investment and the risks that those are now far past what some of those like long form, chains and stuff are. And again, chains are great. And one of our clients we have a few franchise clients, and I'm not saying the franchisees or franchises are bad, but in this moment where they may have a little bit more stability, try to spend the next couple of weeks focusing on that small business, the small shop, hitting the local hardware store versus the Home Depot, and trying to, and it's something I struggle with, like trying to consistently find those solutions or donations and things that, just stay committed to helping each other through this. And as we emerge, we're going to find how great, how good it was and how good it feels to help somebody else like that.
Yeah. Is that what you're taking us out with too? Because I don't know if you can. Well, what would you like to take us out with?
Yeah, I think the whole be curious thing, just stay curious about, even if it's, let's say let's say somebody's spent 23 years working for the same business, and they go to work at 7:45 and they come home at 5:15 and they do this dinner and they do the same date night at this place, or we're like this, the same old. What can you do to take a different route home, right? Like, be curious about the neighborhood. The number of times that I ask somebody, oh, have you ever walked over to this place? Have you ever been here? And it's like in your neighborhood, right? Explore your neighborhood. Go. Erin Eco did this amazing project in town here. I don't know if everybody knows on Erin Eco, O'Mara, but she did the City Saunter project where she walked every single sidewalk in this neighborhood or in all of Lansing and wrote a book about it, took pictures of it. You don't have to be curious to that degree. There's a lot of work to put a lot of miles on, but have you really walked every street in your neighborhood? Just the little things, right? Have you asked somebody a question that maybe you weren't thinking about? Like, what can you do to change your mindset just a little bit and be curious? Because, and I say that starting here, but also go explore. One of my favorite quotes ever is, a mind once stretched never regains the same shape. And I think a lot of our political issues and a lot of the frustrations that we have are these people in, I'll dare say it, echo chambers where they aren't willing to go and experience. And, and I've been very fortunate to be able to travel and do some great stuff. But when you're walking through a village or a neighborhood, or you eat at a diner in a countryside on a road trip instead of stopping at the Applebee's or the Taco Bell on the way, when you do that and you're in that community, you hear the people talking about their issues and you see the things that they're working on and you see the handwritten posters of the things that are happening there. And that there's a lot of inspiration in those moments too. And so this layer of expanding yourself always helps the other people around you, because now it's contagious, right? You're infecting them with new ideas and questions and things like that. So just that whole be curious, I can't say it enough.
Be curious. That's going to make it into the hashtag list, I'm sure.
Okay. It's great.
Hey, thank you for taking the time. I know you're really busy, but you're always there for the community. And I really appreciate you doing the show and loved having you today.
Man, I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone, every damn day at 2 p.m. and we will see you later. Stick with me for a second, Cam.
All right.